Hi, this is Alex Mitchell from Go Tech Yourself, and today we're talking about the right way and the wrong way to prepare for a product management interview. So that's me, again, Alex Mitchell, Chief Product Officer of ICX Media. You can find a lot about me on Twitter. I write a ton on Medium. There's my website. I also started publishing a newsletter every couple weeks, so check that out called Go Tech Yourself. You can find a couple books from me on Amazon in the product management space. And please, please, please click that subscribe button, like this video, share it with your coworkers, your friends, your colleagues. Really appreciate it. Every little bit helps, especially as I'm trying to get this channel off the ground. So with that, let's jump right in. And so today's topic was inspired by a lot of interviews I've been doing with product management candidates. And I've seen some interesting patterns. So I went out there looking on Google and just typed in, prepare for a product management interview. And you get a lot of articles like the ones to the right here. Tons of tips. Here are the questions you need to memorize. Here are the books you need to buy, the courses you need to take. There's some good advice out there, but many offer advice that's honestly just wrong, or sends you in a poor direction where you spend on burning a ton of time on things that honestly just make you look a little bit robotic when you come in. And this is all based on my experience. So I've interviewed kind of hundreds of product management candidates across three different companies I've worked for, and I've seen some patterns that stand out with the candidates that are well prepared, that stand out as quality potential product managers, and those who really looked like they probably just read a few of these articles or bought a few of these books and fell into a few of these patterns. So that's the topic today. That's what I wanted to share with you, is kind of separating the right way and the wrong way to prepare for your product interview. So let's start with the right way to prepare. One of the first things you can do is think about the things you've built. So even if this is your first product job you're applying for, you've probably built something before. You maybe riffed on a startup while you were in college. You maybe did some sort of a startup or entrepreneurial venture when you were in high school. Kind of the best PMs I've seen have just had this like builder gene in their DNA. So kind of think about those times, those experiences when you've built something, even if it wasn't in a traditional job, and think about the story. Like, how did you decide, when to build? What inspired you? How did you decide how to build, what to build, who to build it for? How did you make a lot of those decisions? Think about that story and craft it into something that you can talk about in 1 to 2 minutes. It's a great thing to, kind of interject on. It's a great way to answer a lot of different questions that an interviewer may have, is kind of referring back to this build story and what you learned, how it taught you how to prioritize, other things like that. So have a build story ready to go. And this goes right into prioritizing. So that build story will help with some of this, but kind of get your mind around the things that you look at when you're prioritizing. How do you do the how of building? So, when are you talking with customers or potential customers? When are you talking with people that, maybe have a stake in this project, whether they're your coworkers, whether they're your co-builders, whatever it is? How do you kind of communicate with them and make decisions with them? And then how do you decide when it's time to release something to the world? How do you decide when you've built enough of something that you want to go and test it out there with customers? And then what do you do when you get that information? How do you iterate? How do you release again? Just kind of walking through this prioritization cycle, again, in the scope or in the frame of a project you've worked on, is super helpful for the interviewer to kind of get in your head and really understand how you think about building. Another thing to do is to share some examples about how you've communicated similar information to technical and non-technical people. So think about some of those examples, because you need to be what I call a master communicator as a product manager. I just think about my average day where I'm talking with maybe our leadership team, our sales team in the morning. Then I'm going and doing a stand-up with my engineering team and the engineering leadership. Then I'm meeting with other product managers, maybe potentially a designer, maybe some prospects or customers. That's 4, 5, 6 different languages you need to talk in as a product manager in just one day. So, having examples where you've kind of shared some sort of information or updates or worked on a project with a mix of different types of people, or you've even had to share maybe the same information with different types of people, and you can express, how you thoughtfully went through that to make sure they were understanding, the information you were sharing, make sure you were able to engage them for their feedback. It's really helpful to see that experience as an interviewer, because that is something you're just doing day in, day out as a product manager. It's also really important you study the product of the company you're applying for. I can't tell you how many times I've had candidates come in who clearly, maybe did a couple minutes on the website on their phone when they came in, but they didn't even bother to sign up for the product or think about, product features or competitive landscape. And that's really an automatic disqualifier for me. Someone needs to study the product. You need to study the product as a product management candidate. One, it just shows at a basic level you actually care. You actually care about this job. You care about this company. But it also shows, you have an element of passion. You love product development. Whether you've done it or not before, you love diving into the product features. You love kind of thinking about what you would do if you were responsible for this product. So the way that I would say you should kind of think about answering these types of questions or prepare yourself for the interview is, start really high level. So think about, at a high level, what is this company? What is its purpose? What are the jobs that this product is accomplishing for customers out there? Think about those current customers that are potentially, in for this business. You may not know them all, but you can probably find some information. Think about who could be future opportunities, and then kind of get deeper and deeper. Start to actually get into the product. What's easy to use? What's hard? What looks like they're investing in? What are they not? Where can they expand in that feature set to create some differentiation in this market? Really, spend a couple hours breaking down their product from top to bottom. And you're not going to have to walk through all these details in your interview, but there will be plenty of examples where you're able to interject a question that shows you did some serious work in evaluating their product, or you're able to share an idea. Those things stand out. As an interviewer, that is what I'm looking for. Another thing to do is to kind of know what type of product manager you are. So even if you're not a product manager already, take a look at this 5 types of product managers article that I've written out there on Medium that I've linked in the notes here, and check out what type of product manager you are. Are you a technical product manager? Are you marketing? Are you analytics? Are you a get shit done? Or are you a visionary product manager? Again, even if you haven't been one before, it's helpful to kind of go through this thought exercise and kind of figure out where your skills land in this product management landscape. And it's really important because you can kind of survey and see what this company prioritizes. Certain companies want more technical product managers. Certain ones want more get shit done product managers because they're small startups. And then you can ask questions about the composition of that product team today. Where are they strong? Where do they want to build their skill set? It shows that you're thinking beyond your position. You're thinking in the, kind of a position or two maybe above the one that you're applying for, but it really shows you put a lot of thought not only into yourself, but the company that you're interviewing for. So know what type of product manager you are. Here are some ones that I've found that weren't that good as ways to prepare for your product management interview. So avoid these fails. First, memorizing Agile or other product management definitions or frameworks. Sure, there's a place for those frameworks. There's definitely a place for understanding of Agile, but it's not going to prove anything to me about you being a great product manager because you memorize the definition of a retro, or you memorize the right way to create a ticket. These definitions are inherently not Agile usually, and you really need to recognize that at each company you're going to have to adapt those frameworks, those definitions, to kind of the way you work and the goals that the business has. This career of product management, you definitely can't memorize it from a book. You can get ideas, you can get kind of some frameworks that you can maybe take parts of or adapt along with other frameworks. So there is some value there, but don't just go and memorize a ton of definitions before your interview. That's not going to come across well. It's not going to wow the interviewer. Another thing not to memorize are case studies. So there's a lot of case study books out there for product management interviews. What would you do if you worked at this company in this time and you had this problem? How would you go through the product management flow? And then here's what happened when they went through that. It's helpful to be able to kind of rationalize your way through a few of those problems. That definitely could be helpful. But memorizing the exact case study of what Dropbox did in 2009, when they put their referral page out there that gave you free gigabytes of access to their platform, not going to wow an interviewer, because honestly, it's not super relevant. Those things might not work now because they're so standard. So you're not really going to wow anyone with memorizing those case studies. What would be more compelling is actually creating maybe a case study of your own based on the company you're interviewing for. So looking at their decisions over the past couple of years, whether they're new product introductions, new customers that they've gone after, create a case study around that and really think through it. Would you have made those same decisions? What would you do now? What would you have done then? What other products would you have built? That shows something a lot more relevant to me than that you went and memorized that Dropbox case study. So create one of your own on the company you're interviewing for. It'll also just help you learn a lot about that company and get your head in that right space before the interview. Another thing not to study or spend a ton of time on are these logic or math problems. Certain companies like Amazon or Google will definitely throw problems like these at you, but really going and memorizing exponential growth problems and other things like that are really not going to help you. Number one, you're probably not going to memorize the right ones. Number two, what they're not looking for always is that perfect answer. They're not looking at you've seen this problem before about the telephone power or the power line and the distance of the poles. This is what I saw recently for Amazon. They really are more looking that you can, examine a problem they give you. You can maybe ask some good questions, and then you can walk through a thought process. You can start, sharing how your brain's working, explaining out loud. And then at the end, I think one of the good tricks is, if you don't think you maybe got to the right answer or you got close, but you might not have been all the way there, just express how you would further validate or increase confidence in your answer. Those things come across well. Even if someone didn't get the perfect answer, if they're able to show me a little bit into how they think about things and how they are willing to examine, the answers that they come up with after the fact to make sure that they're right or increase the confidence later, that's great. That's a lot of how product development is. You're always trying to increase confidence along the way, especially as you release and get feedback and then release something new and get new feedback. So that shows a lot into your head. And I think that's the way you should think about these type of problems, not just memorizing every single one out there that you can get your hands on. One other one that you should definitely avoid is pretending to be a developer or an engineer or a tech expert if you're not one. If you were a developer before, great. You can be yourself. But if you're not, don't act like you understand JavaScript and all the intricacies of React as a framework. It's helpful to express that you understand what those things are at a high level, but don't try and get way down in the weeds of kind of code formatting and things like that. You're interviewing for a product management role, not an engineering role. So it's much more important to me that you demonstrate the way you rely or lean on engineering team members and engineering leaders to help inform your decisions, to make the right trade-offs. It's also important that you kind of tell me that you're caring about learning new technologies, right? So, that you actually know a little bit about things like HTML, CSS. I mentioned JavaScript before, that you at least understand what those things are, how they support the product management build. If machine learning is a part of the business, you should at least understand some of the different, kind of types of machine learning out there. You should at least, be kind of a generalist enough to be able to have ideas. If your team is, coming up on a decision where machine learning could benefit, you can suggest that to the team. You want to be enough to, have enough knowledge to be dangerous, but you don't have to pretend you're a tech expert, a developer. That is not what you're being hired for 99.9% of the time as a product manager. Another one to avoid is preparing like what I call basic or poor quality questions. Your interview should not be, them asking you questions for 25 minutes and then at the end, you in a couple minutes asking them a few very basic standard questions. That's really a failed interview. What you should be thinking about is really interviewing the interview throughout that interview. So it should more be like a conversation. I call it an active conversation. So a lot of back and forth between coworkers. a lot of genuine interest, a lot of you asking questions to dive deeper. That really stands out. When someone is doing that and interviewing the interviewer, it almost feels like they're already working for the company. It's not this artificial wall between us where we have these different roles. It's almost like we're colleagues already. So that is definitely something to avoid. No basic questions. Think about some great ones ahead of time, but try and interject real topical questions as you're talking with the interviewer. And here are a few ones that you can use to stand out, to level up even more. One is kind of finding a way to share some of what you've done on the side. I wrote a popular article called One Thing I Look For in Every PM Candidate about side hustles. And side hustles, if done right and done well, can be extremely revealing, insightful, tell me a lot as the hiring manager about you, about how you think, about how you prioritize. So if you have one of these, definitely interject it. Find a way to tell stories during that interview. It reveals a ton. Another one is to what I'm calling like develop and testing hypotheses in the interview. So this is back to that interviewing the interviewer. Kind of come up with those ideas ahead of time of how this company actually fits in their landscape, where they're going in the future, what you think their strategy is or should be. There are great ways to kind of bring in these hypotheses that you've come up with, and even if they're wrong, it shows me so much that you've imagined yourself in this role. You really care about this business you're about to enter or you hope to enter, and you're really thinking about what you would do as a product manager on this team. So kind of develop and test those hypotheses in your interview. So best of luck on that PM job that you're applying for. If you've seen any other great or really bad advice out there for PM candidates, send it my way. Would love to see it. You can share it with me on Twitter. And again, you can find more from me in all of these places. And please, if you didn't already, click that subscribe button, share this with your coworkers, friends, colleagues, family, anyone who you think it could help. I really appreciate it. Thank you.